organization backed by Pilot Growth Equity and the National Science Foundation. We track every private company in the world and all the investment and financing activity related to them to help our clients answer questions about major trends, competitor strategy, potential disruptors, and much more. Here you can see a few of our happy customers. Now, a little about Nick. Nick is a tech industry analyst here at CB Insights. Before joining CB Insights, Nick held a research role at MakerBot and is a graduate of Hamilton College. He's been published in dozens of publications, including Forbes, Fortune, Bloomberg, and more. I'm going to hand it off to him for the presentation.
All right. Hi, everybody. Glad you could join us. We're coming to you live from New York City at the CB Insights office. And we have a lot to talk about today, everything drones. We'll begin with a little bit about the financing trends going to the startup scene, what corporates are doing in the space. And then we have several spotlights. We're going to take a look at industrial inspection, agriculture, drone management software, the tools for autonomy that are being built, insurance, and airspace deconfliction. We'll end with a little bit about edge intelligence and AI that's being brought into it. And then we'll have a forward look about where drones are going. So to begin, let's take a look at this quote from Chris Dixon, who's at Andreessen Horowitz. And he says, if you disassemble a modern drone, VR headset, or IoT devices, you'll find mostly smartphone components. And what's kind of like the defining feature of drones versus RC toys is this concept of an intermediary autopilot function, which is run atop a microcontroller board, and it integrates various sensors. So gyroscopes, accelerometers, and various other sensors. And this is integrated with onboard software that analyzes the flight dynamics, so a pilot's inputs can be translated into a way that ensures flight stability. Now, if you've ever used like an RC toy as a kid, it's highly unstable, very difficult, because every motion you're doing directly throttles the motors on these things. And the difference going forward will be increasing autonomy and making an extremely stable flight. And a lot of the popularity of drones as of late is due to some tailwinds happening far outside the industry. So sensors and broadly in IoT going down, microcontroller costs going down, batteries declining in prices. And this is what Chris Dixon is talking about earlier, about the smartphone really bringing a lot of these technologies that are inside a drone to be at least decreased in price to the point where personal drones can flourish. But we define drones more broadly than just UAVs. So we define them to include hardware and software companies that are developing technologies related to unmanned aerial, marine, and/or land vehicles that are designed specifically for unstructured environments. So we're not going to be talking too much about warehouse robotics, for example, in those slightly more structured or repeatable circumstances. We're going to be talking about drones that are working in slightly more unstructured areas, namely outdoors. So to get an idea of what unstructured can mean, here's a couple unique drone designs that we're starting to see. So these collision-ready drones from Flyability, vertical takeoff and landing designs from SkyX, starting to become very popular. We're seeing a lot of logistics companies work in that. Terrestrial drones from Starship, and marine drones from Saildrone, that's starting to revolutionize how data is captured for climate science on the high seas. This is just to get an idea that this is more than just selfies, more than just flying around in your backyard. Drones can really be anywhere in our natural world. And we have a map here of what we define as our market map. And you can see that we include some of these more novel areas like non-aerial, delivery and transport that are working to deliver goods, medical supplies in really unique circumstances, like Zipline, for example, which we'll talk more about later. There's airspace management, military and defense applications, which might be where the UAV really first started to take hold in a military context. But we're also talking about more new age software such as Flock and Verifly that are enabling drones at a commercial scale to also cover their insurance. So this is an estimate from Goldman Sachs research that is a breakdown of the expected spend on the drones industry through 2020. And you can see here that the bulk of the expected spend will be to military, about 70% here, 70 of the 100 billion that's expected in the next 4 years. And then 30% will be roughly to the non-military market, which is sort of surprising, but it's not to be confused with the idea that drones today are scaled down versions of what were used maybe in the Gulf War. So this quote from Brendan Schulman kind of illustrates that point. He says, "These are not military products that were downsized. These are consumer technologies that got better." And it's really the commercial angle that's going to drive the industry right now. We're seeing that while the unit sales are vastly bigger in the consumer drone space, in market terms, double the revenue is coming from commercial as is. So you can see that red box right there, 2.2 versus the 1.1 in revenue right there. So let's take a look at some financing trends just to the broad startup industry and private markets. We're seeing since 2013, $1.5 billion that have been invested across 302 deals. And drones saw a combined $542 million invested just last year. And that marks a 29% growth year over year. And some big deals that we saw last year: Airware, ClearPath Robotics, Airobotics. This is a pretty large category and seems to be continuing deals. If they continue the current run rate, we'll see about 110 by the end of this year. At a quarterly scale, you can see that there was kind of an outlier quarter at quarter one of 2017. It bumped up to 31 deals. It's kind of fallen back a little bit, but to be honest, the average deal count of a quarter last year was 26.5. So having 24 in quarter two is really nothing to be alarmed about. And both figures, both deals and dollars, are pretty much roughly on par with the typical quarter of last year. And some big deals in 2017 so far. We're seeing 3D Robotics with large Series D, Swift Navigation, which we'll talk a little bit more about later, and Echodyne with a $29 million Series B. Now, taking a look here at the deal share, the stage at which deals are done, it's kind of interesting that deals at the early stage have kind of spiked and gone down and then moderated back. So I think this is just illustrating the point that the industry is starting to moderate its early stage deal making, and we're still, it's still a nascent area, and early stage in 2015 peaked at 73%, but still it's a large part of it. In this year so far, early stage represents 60% of the deals. Some of the largest names and most active investors here, topping the list, some well-known accelerators: Y Combinator, Techstars, Lux Capital. And then there's a healthy mix. Lux is not an accelerator, but some other names, some established venture firms like Lux, Andreessen Horowitz, and also a good mix of corporate venture arms: Qualcomm, Google, Intel. Their venture arms are all represented here. Now, the US is the home to the bulk of the funded startups. And this is just a breakdown of deals to the country location of the startup. And you can see 69% going to the United States, but there's some sizable representation from Australia, Canada, China, and the UK, which are all the next largest. And we have a map here of where these startups from around the world are popping up. And it's interesting just because drones are truly a global phenomenon right now. All over the world, we're seeing representation from Italy, Israel, South Africa, Russia, Turkey, Bulgaria, all over the place. And it's not all tech phenomenons really have that kind of global reach to them. So it's really interesting to see where they're all coming from. Now, some of the high momentum startups that raised at least this year, we have Airware, which is a drone, like a full stack drone company that does enterprise and aerial analysis. Swift Navigation, working more in the analytics and GPS location. Echodyne, working more on the materials angle. 3D Robotics, very big drones manufacturer, did a big pivot into the commercial space recently. And Neurala, which is working in more of the autonomy angle for software in moving vehicles as well as drones. And just if you're unfamiliar with Mosaic Score, it's a proprietary algorithm. A proprietary algorithm that we have at CB Insights that weighs all sorts of funding metrics, investor quality, deal recency, deal size, and aggregates them into a score out of 1,000. So you're taking a look here at the largest Mosaic scores of deals of companies that have raised this year so far. Now, to get an idea of the most well-funded companies out there that are still private, we have 3D Robotics with nearly $180 million in funding. But then there's DJI Innovations, which has raised $105 million, but it's not really indicative of anything because DJI's revenue last year was $1.5 billion, so nearly 15 times what it's raised. And the DJI really is the market leader currently, at least in the consumer drone space. The company boasts having 70% of the consumer market, and it's sometimes compared to the iOS of drone software, and its market share is so great that it's pretty dominant. But there is also an open source version that's starting to popularize called Drone Code, which is used by 3D Robotics, Unique, Intel, Parrot, and some others. But DJI definitely is dominant as far as the hardware and software together goes. Definitely name to familiarize yourself with. So some smart money investors are getting involved in this. Nearly all of them, actually. 19 out of the 24 smart money investors that we have listed have been involved with a drones investment since 2012. So you can see Andreessen Horowitz, one of the most active here. You can see some serious crossover between these firms. So Airware has multiple investments from smart money investors: Zipline International, 3D Robotics, Drone Deploy, Swift Navigation, Sci-Fi Works, AirMap. These are just a few of the names that have gotten multiple deals from multiple smart money investors. So switching gears a little bit, we're going to talk about where corporates are making moves into the drone space. So to begin, here are the most active corporate venture investors. You can see some of those connections in our business social graph, which is visualization that you have on the platform as a CB Insights subscriber. You can see here that we have Airware, Precision Hawk, extensions of Intel Capital, as well as Unique. Some interesting crossover as well with Skycatch. And yeah, these are connected, albeit they're in different industries, Google, Intel, Qualcomm. They're very much together. See topping our most active IoT investors as well. So not a surprise to see them all here. And here's another visualization, just the corporate venture arm and its corporate parents. Some of these most active corporates, as far as corporate investors go, the most active are also the most active acquirers. So these names: Qualcomm, Google, Intel. You can see their investments here on the left and their acquisitions on the right from their corporate parent. Some interesting names like Titan Aerospace, Sending Technologies, Mavinci from Intel. These are some interesting names. Also, Boeing overall the most active acquirer, worth noting. So exits to the space have really ramped up. You can see M&A saw a huge uptick in 2016. That's 180% boom right there. And so far in 2017, we've seen 8 exits. So you run right that for the year, and we'll probably see a little bit of growth over 2016 even. Another visualization of that, you can see logos, maybe a little nicer for the eye here. You can see just that it's gotten a lot more cluttered as time has gone on. So 2017, starting to see more and more M&A go into the space for the most part. Now, switching gears a little bit to the patents angle, where patenters are going into the space. Mainly, the takeaway here is that patents to UAVs and drone technologies have increased broadly. We're seeing 77% growth year over year in 2015. 2016 and 2017, it's hard to say what's going to happen yet because the USPTO is going to keep publishing patents in their applications. So hard to say, but we expect this area to continue with more intellectual property being claimed. Now we do have a chart here of the most active patenters based on their grants, and this includes approved, pending, and rejected applications from 2012 to the present day. You can see topping the list, not a surprise, Amazon with a huge logistics network it's trying to modernize. Google, Boeing, IBM, Parrot, the French-based drone camera manufacturer. We have Verizon, AV, Qualcomm, and various other names that certainly might not be synonymous with drone technology, but have a massive incentive and strategic value in being in the drone space. So some electronics manufacturers like LG, entertainment drones are starting to popularize. If you take a look back on our market map that we showed earlier, Walt Disney Company starting to get involved with that. And definitely some logistics necessary in Walmart. And a well-funded startup at the bottom of the list, Skycatch right there, worth noting, 9 patents filed already. So you can't really talk about drones and corporates without mentioning Amazon's vast and pretty visionary efforts. In my personal opinion, some of these are really interesting designs that they've evolved over the years. Amazon has this idea of an automated launch pad that would emerge from a fulfillment center. And right now, Amazon's testing a pilot in the United Kingdom to test small 30-minute deliveries. And their patent trove, their portfolio of the patents they've gotten are extremely forward-thinking and really seem to be stressing the idea of last-mile delivery, especially for perishables. And now that it recently acquired Whole Foods, it has tremendous incentive to work out a better network for bringing those small items and perishable groceries into the home. So you might have seen, we reported and broke news about this floating fulfillment center, like attached to a blimp in the top right here, you can see. It's the patent for airborne fulfillment center utilizing unmanned aerial vehicles. So basically, a blimp warehouse would drop off drones onto a community's houses and get that last mile done by drones falling from the sky. Another one more recently, that just a couple of weeks ago, at the top right here, multi-level fulfillment center for unmanned aerial vehicles, kind of this beehive design for basically being a giant birdhouse, except for moving drones that would be delivering technologies. And then also kind of a curious one, bottom left here, that would sit atop a street light. This design of autonomous drones having an autonomous box to keep it in is a design we're starting to see more and more in industrial inspection, and definitely curious to see Amazon putting patents around that. And a couple more dispersal warehouse patents from some other companies, Amazon, Verizon. This is a popular space, more than just floating warehouses, but trying to make the networking and infrastructure to allow UAVs to take hold. One other interesting note, just before we move on from Amazon, they're envisioning more than just UAVs in the sky. One of their patents here calls UAVs uncrewed autonomous vehicles. And you can see at the bottom here, the UAV may include an uncrewed ground vehicle, an uncrewed aerial vehicle, or a drone that's remotely piloted, aircraft, and so forth. So really what Amazon's doing is it's kind of leaving some boilerplate patent language that could eventually mesh with its broader autonomous vehicle effort. And I think, in the far along in the future, drones and autonomous vehicles will start to blur into one in Amazon's supply chain. And this, suggests that a little bit. Also, just worth noting, Amazon's working on an in-house autonomous vehicle effort in its Prime Air division. So it that definitely suggests that this meshing will be fostered within Amazon's ranks. So two other interesting corporate developments. DHL, big logistics name, they're testing a pilot with its bi-motor tilt-wing parcel copter, which definitely takes its design after the famous Osprey helicopter, at least a little bit, vertical takeoff and landing. Also, top right image there, you can see on its totally automatic box encasing it. An increasingly popular design, and they've tested it out in Bavaria a little bit last year. Another big logistics name, UPS, has done some flashy partnerships with Zipline to deliver blood in Rwanda. Sci-Fi Works to do some commercial deliveries, as well as just trying to develop a truck and drone combination for the last mile with Workhorse. And UPS was saying that the real desire here is to apply it, at least the truck top angle, for rural areas where delivery stops are further apart. So shifting gears a little bit, doing a spotlight here on industrial inspection. This is an area that we're starting to see really drive a lot of the growth in the drone industry currently. And this little image to the right here with a drone that has a flamethrower attached to clear debris off of high voltage power lines in China, I think that really gets the idea across that the physical work aspect could be a big part of the future as far as industrial applications go. Right now, though, we're starting to do more of the inspection angle, replacing, sending somebody up on a crane, to flame throw some power lines. Instead, just send a drone. We want to replace these dirty, dangerous, and dull jobs. And this is, a real easy application, low-hanging fruit for applying industrial scale drones. So some names that are doing this and also taking advantage of the easy application of terrestrial imagery, Precision Hawk, 3D Robotics, Airware, Drone Deploy. Some of these are some well-funded names that are doing that. Definitely worth taking a look at Airware. Really talking about, working with presently large insurance companies in Europe and North America. They've developed more of a full stack solution. Basically, what would happen is, an insurance company wants to take a look and collect certain data on an asset. Airware software generates a suitable flight plan, and then operator uploads it to a drone. Drone goes and does the flight completely autonomously, and the results are sent back, converted totally automatically in the way the insurance company had to spec. And a lot of the success and like the service angle of autonomy. So what makes that kind of service possible is having an autonomous flight plan software, and it also allows Airware to charge for previously undoable and really high margin type use cases. So you can see below, these are just a couple of the services offered on the Airware site. So we're talking haul road and fuel usage analysis, drilling and blasting planning, safety and compliance monitoring. This is stuff that used to have to talk to a company who really knew what they were doing to get this. Now just an algorithm and a flight plan. And one interesting application as far as the mining community goes, just surveying what is sitting in a pile, how much stuff is sitting there. It's kind of a tough problem that used to take a surveyor going into a rather dangerous quarry or mining location and doing a bunch of calculations in a compromised area. Now it's just a quick flight plan away. Like I was saying earlier, the drone in a box is as far as autonomous drones go, is a very popular idea where the drone would essentially self-charge, and especially makes sense in some rural areas where, say, SkyX would be monitoring oil and gas pipelines. There might not be a lot of people or infrastructure to tend to a drone, and that's the final dream for a lot of logistics and some of these industrial inspection areas. So interesting design, also just the vertical takeoff and landing capability. Interesting company to watch there. Shifting gears another time to agriculture. Now, some of the biggest names in consumer drones are starting to pivot into the industrial, the enterprise, and also agriculture specifically. So this is a shot of DJI's agriculture drone, which would allow for application of actual pesticides. So these are crop dusting drones, really interesting area. Some smaller companies that we're seeing do some novel things here, like Drone Seed, actually just spraying seeds and helping reforestation take place. Small company out of Techstars. Another small one called Farm Shots, really utilizing the satellite imagery suite and really just taking advantage of topography. It's a really big part of deciding how to move a tractor around, a giant plot. You need to know what the area topographies look like, and there's really no cheaper solution than a drone presently. So definitely an easy use case there. Another popular angle is also with drone software, just managing what's going on if you were to use a fleet of drones in the field. So Hanger is one of these companies working on mass adoption, basically just automating the analysis of commercial flights. If you're a small-time operator or a professional company that offers certain services, this would be a platform for aggregating and analyzing lots of data. Botlink, another one, working in a similar area, just trying to give operators real-time access to outside data sets like weather, airspace awareness, and other radio and cellular connections, more on-the-ground analysis. And a very popular angle, you can take a look at our market map, some other ones working in the marketplace space, basically just Uberizing drone services. So a marketplace where a small-time drone operator can meet somebody who needs to get some shots done of their ranch that they're selling, basically on-demand drone services. Some big names here like Rothenberg, big in the frontier tech space, Union Square Ventures, Upfront Ventures, Y Combinator, and wouldn't be surprised to see more full stack services coming from them as far as the people they want to enroll into their system. And then also spotlight tools for increasing autonomy in drones. So one big angle is just getting drones to know where they're going. Big one working on that problem is Swift Navigation. This was on our 2016 Game Changers list. It just has massive applications inside drones and also just autonomous vehicles as well. It really, millimeter accurate, low cost systems for doing so. Another interesting one, Iris Automation, just working more on the vision and collision avoidance. And this will be, this will continue to be a hot button topic as far as regulation goes. Right now, a lot of commercial flights can't, at least in the US, you can't fly out of sight. And as collision avoidance, computer vision gets better and better, we might be able to see more relaxed regulations, and a company like Iris working in this space definitely is solving a valuable problem. Two other areas, so insurance and airspace deconfliction. These kind of go hand in hand because working in UAVs, you have to know where you're flying, and dodging the red tape that goes with flying in the United States can be difficult, and a lot of considerations. There's other aircraft, and there have been some serious accidents and some mistakes that consumer drone makers have done, or sorry, consumer drone operators have made. And this one from AirMap, not a surprise to see Airbus Group Ventures with a tremendous incentive and to figure out airspace. Qualcomm, Social Capital, Microsoft Ventures, Lux Capital, General Catalyst. This is an interesting one. Another one, really small, but definitely has some potential, is Flock. So basically offering per flight insurance. So basically has Uberized the concept of per mile insurance, maybe doing essentially what Metromile does for normal vehicles. This would do that for maybe a small time commercial drone operator who it would also take into account the flight, how risky the area that they're flying in is, and be able to spit out, you can see in the bottom right here, just the idea of what the per flight insurance would run them. Definitely a really interesting model if it does work out. And then finally, we're talking a little bit about the edge intelligence and increasing autonomy for drones as being a big area. This quote from Tony Fadell, who's famous for Nest and designing the original Apple iPod, I think captures what's going on here. And he says, "There are these Cambrian explosion moments in technology, and the iPhone was one of them. It was a combination of hardware and software. Today, that's happening with sensors and AI, which imbue this kind of intelligence to things and give us self-driving, self-flying, self-floating things." So alluding to the idea of drones being more than aerial toys, he's really pointing out that the sensors and AI and bringing intelligence to drones will be the future of maybe the startup world at least. And just a general trend that's going on in IoT and Internet of Things, and especially drones too, is bringing intelligence to the edge. So it used to be that everything that was collecting data needed to route it to the cloud, to a centralized location where big data could be crunched. More and more, you don't need to send a million messages that everything is okay to a centralized cloud. Not only is it not that feasible in certain areas, especially if you're moving a drone in rural Tanzania, it's also becoming more possible to put AI and machine learning onto chips on the actual device. That's what they mean when they say on that, at the edge, and having more computing done at the edge of the network as opposed to doing it in a centralized location. So, I think some pretty. At any rate, it's a really interesting trend to watch, and I think it's something that we'll see continue in autonomous vehicles, in drones, in IoT. And I think one company that's worth checking out that's doing that is Mythic. They're doing AI chips in a variety of verticals here, but they definitely do put some emphasis on enabling the autonomous drone as a big use case for them. Basically, AI on a chip. So shifting gears just to a forward look at where drones will go. Definitely we're definitely mired in some interesting regulations that have flip-flopped a little bit and may even prove to be unconstitutional, according to some petitions that have been filed. Basically, what's happened is there's a big proliferation of the personal drone. The FAA has said now you can use drones for commercial use under these certain circumstances, which is being called Part 107. But really, whatever happens, it will definitely dictate how drones get adopted. Some companies, I don't think it's a coincidence, Amazon's testing in the UK and not the United States. A lot of the rules with commercial regulation dictate that you can't fly with a drone out of sight. Definitely puts a damper on testing some of these new technologies, and will be something worth watching as the industry develops, at least in the United States. And here's just a roadmap of potential scenarios. Now, some of these could be simultaneous, some of these could be overlapping, but I think the big trend to look out for in the near term, commercial drones proliferating. It's really the commercial space. It's going to be driving a lot of the revenue in market terms, at least in the short term. And drones could popularize in new, novel outdoor commercial use cases, agriculture, industrials, anything surveying or related to the earth. We'll be able to find a drone use case for it. Obviously an unknown there. Can regulation keep up? And when will the technology evolve for the FAA to relax those line of sight rules, or at least be more permissive for the testing of technologies? In the maybe medium term, drones go the last mile. And by that I mean that logistics networks, logistics companies, Amazon, UPS, DHL, all these names definitely integrate the technology into their supply chains, and the physical work, the moving of stuff, and the doing of things becomes the aspect that is more primary. Right now, a lot of it is just attaching a camera and looking at imagery. Then in the future, the work part could be more important. Unknown there could be, will autonomy technologies and the private demand collaborate to regulate itself? Would this be a winner-take-all scenario with Amazon's trove of patents and clear will to make this a reality? Definitely worth asking. And then more farther along, drones getting nano and also macro. So helicopter-sized drones. You've seen maybe on our market map the EHang personal drone. When I first saw a drone you could hop into, you kind of wonder what's the difference between a drone and a helicopter. Again, it's the autonomy. So you wouldn't be actually piloting the thing. You would press a button and it would fly you for it. And so that flying car scenario could possibly outpace some of autonomous vehicle technology or terrestrial autonomous vehicles in urban areas. That's not a terribly unlikely scenario. There's also maybe a meshing of the personal robot and the drone, so a companion that would follow you around and fly around, and also the bee swarm type nano drones that could pollinate crops, as we have some colony instability going on, and definitely puts a lot of our food supply at risk. Could be a very valuable problem to solve. So some unknowns obviously there. Will battery technologies make this a viable solution? And will the form factor decrease to make those micro drones feasible before we have colony collapse, I suppose? But some interesting trends just to look out for. Regulations, obviously, developing countries could be more permissive. Could mean that there's a lot more happening elsewhere aside from America in the future. China already leader with DJI, and a lot of just broadly, the whole country owning a lot of worldwide logistics and shipping. Drone and last mile could be an extension of that, very clear national desire. Nano UAVs could pair with facial recognition software, tracking behaviors. We've seen, some reports about facial tracking in China as well, trying to make a scorecard out of people's public behaviors. Definitely brings to mind some Black Mirror-y, maybe dystopian uses of technology, but very feasibly could be done, and not very far from now. Which is scary to think, and also could be done, with certain good, I suppose. Other ones, like I mentioned, companion drones being a reality, but I think broadly, a big trend to watch is just autonomous vehicles and drones beginning to blur in the public psyche, also literally in the logistics and supply chains. Like I said, Amazon's clearly trying to do both, and I don't think they're the only ones either. So worth keeping an eye on that as well. And that is all I have from you or for you today. But I love talking about this stuff, so please feel free to reach out to me on Twitter. I'm at npapag. My email's down there too if you'd like to reach out to me. Happy to jump in a conversation answer any of the questions you have maybe later this afternoon. Special thanks to Judd Waite, a new analyst on our team who helped make this presentation possible. And I look forward to hearing from you on Twitter and elsewhere. And please do reach out. And if you have questions, you know where to find me. So thanks again for tuning in, and we'll continue coverage on this again just a little while from now. So keep your eyes peeled. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll talk to you later.